again. You all know me. I'm Mona Lisa Joshi, and this is my talk show called Mona Lisa's Talk Show. And today I have another interesting guest with me. We're already in season 5. This is episode 4 happening today. And let's welcome today's guest, Aparna Sanyal, who is an author of the recently released book, Instruments of Torture, and also this a poetry book that we are going to discuss. So let's welcome Aparna. Hi, Aparna. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well, Mona Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Very excited.
The pleasure is all mine. Now, since I'm a poet, I'll firstly like to really talk about your poetry book first.
Sure.
And I was really, kind of attracted towards the cover. Firstly, I have to tell you that. And I would like to know firstly that who did the cover? The cover is really amazing.
There is an extremely talented lady who lives in Mumbai. Her name is Ruchi Bakshi Sharma. And I was very lucky because she came on board to help and design the cover. So, yeah, so I was very lucky to have her.
So, did you have something particularly in mind, or she went through the manuscript and it's all her creation?
She did go through the manuscript, but I think we had a very clear idea. I wanted it to be lush, very green, dark, and yeah, appealing to me in terms of how vibrant, but at the same time, deep it was. So I think that was what we had in mind for Spoken Village Freaks. So yeah, I think Ruchi did superbly. It was just like, oh my God, my dreams come true.
Okay, wonderful. So, okay. Now, since I'm a poet, and of course, when I read that it is more of like a poetry prose kind of book, so that
Yeah.
caught my attention. So, I really want to know that how did the idea come to you that you want to write a book that is different? It is
Yeah.
into poetry, but then again, it has prose. So, how did the idea come, and what was the inspiration behind it?
So when I started out uh, writing in poetry form, it was about 8 years ago or 7 years ago, and I did quite a bit of poetry. So I was published in a lot of literary journals around the world. So by the time I reached the idea for Circus Folk, I was doing unmetered and non-rhyming prose mostly. However, what happened was that one, I think the primary character, the character in the first poem of the book, came to me one night I was sleeping, and I remember I woke up early in the morning and I turned around, and I kind of shook my husband awake, and I said, I took the name of the character, and he said, no, no, this is your husband. And I was like, yeah. And then I realized that this character did not leave me the whole day. It was a crocodile man. The first poem is about a crocodile man. So it didn't leave me for a very long time until I kind of sat down to write it, and then it just came out in a torrent. And these stories, and there were 18 stories in that book, told in rhyme, and they just kind of flowed almost continuously over a period of 3 weeks. After which I kind of was like, okay, my God, I don't know where this came from. And I put it away and came back to it after a couple of months, and it was still very strong and insistent. So then I went through the whole process of, um, you know, editing a couple of times, trying to do a little bit of metered rhyming because I'm not very good with that at all. For me, I think it was a medium to tell a story, more than an exercise in the semantics or the architecture of good poetry. And
Right.
luckily for me, the book was pretty popular. It did decently well. So yeah, so that's how Circus Folk came about.
So, these are all 18 different stories, or are they interconnected with each other?
So so it's based in two. The book is based in two locales. One is a circus and one is a village. And that's why it's called Circus Folk and Village Freaks. And
Right.
I imagine that the circus and the village are next to each other, or the circus is on the outskirts of this particular village. And all the characters either come from the circus or the village. So one story is based on a village character, and then another story is based on a circus character. And even though the stories it isn't one huge big story, the stories are interconnected in the sense that you'll see the presence of one character in another story, and somehow they kind of will, meet each other along the way because they all belong to that same geographic place. So that's primarily
So
what
when
is
you approached,
structures.
right. So when you approached your publisher, what was their reaction? Was it firstly accepted or did you face any rejection as well?
No, no. So I've had two very different journeys when it comes to the publication of both books. For the first book, I knew that I would not really make it to one of the big three or the big five publishers because I was just starting out. So, and I didn't really have a background in literature as such, although I'd written in some form all my life. But I didn't come with, an MFA, or I didn't come with a sort of lineage to go into the whole thing. So at that point of time, I approached Vishwakarma, and Vishwakarma is a boutique publishing house out of Pune. And, and I liked the quality of their publishing. So, I kind of went ahead with them. I didn't really have very many expectations from Circus Folk other than I had these stories inside me. I wanted them to be told. I wanted it to be done in a certain way. And Vishwakarma was very helpful with that. The vision for my second book was entirely different because that was prose. So for prose, obviously, it was much more tenable that I would be able to find a good publisher. And luckily for me, I it was like a dream come true because I was approached by HarperCollins and by my editor at HarperCollins with do you have a manuscript? And so I did luckily have my short stories. So I sent them. I was very lucky because I and this is just before the pandemic hit, and Circus Folk had done quite well. So I was lucky that they kind of came to me and expressed an interest, and I was able to send them what I had. Luckily, I had my short story, I had my first draft ready, and I think they signed me on just within months. I was signed with HarperCollins. However, then the pandemic happened, so then everything kind of got pushed back. So Instruments of Torture should have been out 3 years ago, but here we are. And but yeah, Instruments has done, I think, decently as well, in the sense that it's been very favorably reviewed by many different,
Yeah,
for us.
I
Lucky, yeah, I'm lucky. So
That's wonderful. So I really want to know that obviously the title suggests that instruments of torture, you are talking about instruments of torture, of course, from the medieval times. So
mm.
why did you choose this only? And what was the inspiration? Like, how did it come to you that you want to use certain, things like torture against
Yeah,
your story?
yeah. So so the thing is, I've always written pretty dark content. And my husband loves to say that when she's talking about instruments of torture, she's actually talking about how she tortures me. So,
Okay.
yeah. But what happened was that he and I were traveling and we went to an exhibition of actual physical medieval torture instruments. And when I saw it, I was entirely fascinated and intrigued and horrified at the same time. And I was amazed at the ability that a human being has to actually torture another. And what inventive devices we have had in the past to actually torture another human being. And then I kind of sort of went into my head, and I knew that there was something there. I've always struggled with my mental health, being a lifelong depressive, and I've spoken very openly about my struggle. So I realized that being in the throes of depression is its own unique kind of torture. And I said to myself that let's draw the parallel between physical and mental torture, and the kind of mind games that we play with each other that can actually be equated to a kind of torture as well. And torture is not just physical. It's in so many different forms. It's psychological, it's sociological, it's based on so many different ways in which a person others the other person. And that just kind of fascinated me. And again, the stories just seemed to flow, and I was lucky that they flowed in prose this time. So that's where Instruments of Torture came from. So each story is based, it is named after a medieval torture instrument, but the name is taken and the essence of the instrument is translated into a modern story, very much based in urban, suburban India. And it's based on many different posits, and it's based on many different societal norms that people fail to follow, many
Right.
differences that people exhibit, neurodiversity, things like that. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's what the book
So
is
do you
about.
somewhere talk about patriarchy as well in any of your stories?
Continuously and totally, through and through my writing, that is the one thing that I speak about continuously is patriarchy, the caste system. Again, I know I sound like an armchair politician or an armchair activist, but I do believe that through writing we can, put our opinion out there. And yes, absolutely, it is extremely feminist, extremely bashing the patriarchy. Most of my stories do have that bent to them. Mostly all, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, obviously, that as you said that you have an inclination towards writing dark and gothic and gory stuff. So, are you also trying to write something else apart from like a full-fledged novel or something? And again, is it going to be the same genre?
So I do have my novel ready in first draft. So I have a manuscript ready in first draft, and yes, it is novel length, and it is absolutely it's feminist fiction with very gothic underpinnings. So, literary fiction, feminist leanings, gothic underpinning, that's about as much as I want to give away. But I'm hoping that, we'll find a good publisher, and I'll know where to go with it. Maybe in the coming 6 or 8 months. So hopefully 2026 should be publication year for me again.
Wonderful. So one thing I want to ask that how do you write? Like, what is your writing discipline? Do you follow any kind of pattern? Do you chart it out? Do you have a map system in your mind, or you directly go with the flow and you sit on your laptop and you just type, 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 and that's it?
So the thing is that as much as I've tried to inculcate the discipline of writing every day, I find that when I write every day, I write extremely trite nonsense, which I just end up deleting, mass deleting. Like I've deleted documents and documents of nonsense that I've written because I realize that when I'm not in that particular headspace, I can't translate well to what I need to convey. So I know a lot of authors and a lot of writers who say write every day so it keeps you current, but it doesn't work for me like that. Also because I'm the mother of an 11-year-old, and I also have an 18-year-old nephew, so my home is kind of filled with noisy boys. So what I try to do is when an idea comes to me very strongly in my head, I will start refining it, and in my notepad I will start putting down the points, and I'll start thinking about the characters, and I'll start thinking about who is this person, why do I want to write about them, and kind of making the bones of what I want to write ready in my notepads. So it's just thoughts that will come to me, things that I think the character would say, things like that. And I will live with the idea for as long as I can. So I may be, doing the most mundane thing, like putting my son to bed or doing homework with him, or, helping my husband at his business, or whatever it is, everyday life. But in the back of my head, there is always a second track which will be thinking and mulling over my story that I want to tell. And then what I'll do is that about every 6 months, I will take 2 weeks where nobody is allowed to touch me and nobody is allowed to approach me. And then my husband is handling the children and saying, no, we are not going to bother mummy. And I will not eat, I will not sleep, I will just be consumed. And that's almost like a fever, like a delirium that will overcome me. And during that time, I am lost to everything and everyone. That is the only way I find. And it's a great deal of discomfort within me because by then the story has built to bursting point. It's
Right.
only then that I'm able to put it down on the page, and then I'll step away from it. So then I'll come back to it only after, say, a couple of months. And then is when the process of editing and re-editing, and like Instruments of Torture, I edited 6 full times before I, agreed for it to be published. So I do tend to take a lot more time in editing, and uh, that's basically how I do it. I wish I could say that I'm able to write 1,000 words every day. I know a lot of my author buddies do it, and I am so amazed, and I admire their fortitude and their direction so much, but it somehow doesn't work for me.
I think it doesn't work for many of people also. I'm into this also with you. I mean, I have taken 10 years to write my novel, so I
Oh
can
wow,
understand.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
because I wrote, I wrote, I deleted, and somehow after 10 years, I felt like, okay, now it's good to go.
Now you're ready. Yeah, yeah. But then, I think writers tend to live in their head as well, because then you'll just keep refining and refining and refining, and until you finally are just like, if I don't let this go right now, I'm just going to be that one person sitting at the back of a workshop and just tinkering and saying, "Me, I can make this better, I can make this better," and it'll never come out. So at
Right.
some point in time, you also have to practice that distance and say, "Jao, now I'm done. I need to look at the next thing." So if you ask me about Circus Folk, I'm like, okay, what was the name of all my characters? I will genuinely not remember. Subramaniam, yes, that's the name of the character. It may have consumed me for so long, but once I leave it, I'm done. I'm and I and I'm like, ooh, why did I write that? Now next thing, move forward. Yeah,
Right. Okay, so you were talking about depression. I want to know one thing, if you feel like answering, of course.
absolutely.
That, like you said, that you write, gothic and gory stuff. That kind of, attracts you more. So
Yeah,
we have always seen, or not like always, some seldom it has been seen that writers say that when they're writing something, it kind of devours them. You get into the soul of your whatever you are writing. So
yeah.
has it devoured it, or it has become, an outlet to vent out those emotions? It has somehow helped you. What would you
It's a
say?
little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. Because when I started writing, it was more like just a release. But then I realized when I was writing just for release, it was absolutely tragically bad, and not worth reading at all. When I am more open to skeletonizing my own feelings, that's when the work actually rings for me. So even though it is a catharsis to put the words down on the page, I am emotionally entirely drained and exhausted after writing. Specifically, a few stories which are very close to my heart, specifically those that hit me as a mother. I'll write them because I don't want to shy away from that. So, like, Instruments of Torture also deals with pedophilia, and
Yes.
and as well as there is a character in Circus Folk and Village Freaks where this little boy dies because his father is not, does not do what is needed to be done. And those stories were very difficult for me to write. And it might have been easier to just say, I don't want to go there, because it's like every parent's worst fear actualized. But and so those stories were actually, after writing them, I was like, in myself, I was, oh my god, I can't believe I just wrote that. And very often when I'll step back to what I've written, I'm like, I wrote that. I mean, I can't believe I wrote that. So yeah, so definitely it's a combination of both things. There is a little bit of catharsis, but there is also an emotional emptying out. There is definitely relief, but pain as well. And I think any artist knows that feeling, is
Yeah.
that until you don't put yourself in a place of discomfort,
Hmm.
you can't really create.
Right.
So yeah.
And it is also believed that fiction is never a fiction because it's always carrying the soul of the writer. It always has the story of the writer in one way or the other. Do you also
Yeah.
believe in that?
120%. So many people have actually asked me that where did you find these characters in Instruments of Torture? Because
Mm.
at least with Circus Folk and Village Freaks, it was still very, it had a lot of magic realism to it. And, it was Circus Folk, Instruments of Torture has a little bit of magic realism, but it's still very grouted in urban India and still very grouted in like, a person living in a town like Nagpur, that kind of thing. And my answer to them was that surprisingly, most of the characters that I've written about are characters I've known in my life. And you would never imagine that you would know these people, but these are real people. All I've done is I have seen them and I've seen their circumstances, and I thought, what if this led to that? And I've extrapolated a story based on that and formed it accordingly. But there is nothing otherworldly about those characters. They very much exist not only on the margins of society, but within society. So whether it is a person who has man boobs, which is one of my stories, deal with gynomastia. So,
Okay.
I've known somebody like that. I've known somebody who has a child with severe, like a cerebral palsy kind of a thing, and his other child is perfectly beautiful, perfectly well formed. So the siblings interaction there.
Right.
I've known of people who are within the church structure pledged to become fathers, pledged to become brothers, but who are having affairs, torrid affairs at that point of time. So things like that, all the so-called taboo topics that people don't talk about, these seem
Right.
to be characters that I've come across each and every story. And in fact, one of the stories in Instruments of Torture is based on a character like me, very much like
Mm.
me, because again, Purnima, the name of the character, she deals with depression as well. The outcome for
Okay.
her has been different than it is for me. However, when I talk about her going through, when her husband forces her to give up her medication, because he
Right.
doesn't believe that depression exists, which is something which is a very common thing that happens in India today as
Mm.
well. ये क्या है, ये पागलपन है, it's rubbish, it doesn't
Mm.
exist, it's in
Right.
your head, think yourself out of it. So what she goes through when she actually does not take her medication, that kind of withdrawal is withdrawal I've been through myself. So when
Okay.
I write from a place where I've actually gone through it myself. Her outcome has just, I'm lucky that my outcome has not been her outcome. That's all.
Okay. Wonderful. Now, I want to know one thing that I by now I've understood that you have more towards magical realism. You like to write about gothic stuff. So I want to know that what kind of world exists in your mind. How do you see the world? It must be different. I'm sure.
How do I see? Sorry, you winked out for a minute.
How do you see the world around you? How your outlook toward the world? I'm sure it must be different from like other people.
I don't know whether it's different, but essentially, people would probably think that I am really dark myself, but I think I'm a very serious minded person, essentially. However, I am an eternal hopeful. And I think I perceive I perceive the world through pretty gullible eyes mostly. I tend to be taken for granted a lot in my life. So it's not like I am a cynic. I'm absolutely not a cynic. And I tend to think that the world is a lot more beautiful than we normally look at. So I think it's an entirely fantastic, beautiful place with so much potential. In fact, I think the coming generations are generations that give us so much hope. So, like when I look at my own son and my nephew and I see how wonderful they are, I have great hope for all of us. So, yeah, that's who I am.
And have you been doing any readings of your book, the recent one?
So off and on, things happen off and on. Since I'm still very new, as you know, as a publisher and author yourself, it's very difficult to get your place in the sun. You know,
Hmm.
it's a journey. Absolutely, as publishers, HarperCollins are a dream because you do get to experience a lot of things, like you do your book signings and your book tour, and you meet your people and all of that. But having said that, it's still, I wish that there was more engagement, and I wish that there was more. Part of that is on me, because sometimes, again, life gets in the way of wanting to do what one really wants to do. I'd love to be able to just travel with my book and speak at different places and all of that, but life kind of comes in the way. But I can't complain. It's been pretty good. I think the book has been reviewed really well. In fact, the Telegraph put it on the list of page turners for 2024. Sonali's book club, Sonali Bendre's book club, has
Yeah.
always been, they're so amazing. Sonali herself is so amazing. So they featured me in one of their top reads, one of their 12 reads for 2024. So things like that. So I've been fairly lucky, again, I would say. Could I do better? 120%. There's always, there's always hope for improvement. There's always, you want to reach more and more people. And that will come. That will
Yeah.
come for sure.
Right. That's a wonderful outlook towards seeing things, especially as an author, because in these days, as there are so many authors, so it's really difficult
Yeah.
to get to that place and
Yeah.
becoming someone you people are reading. But
and
that's
and
fine.
also and also I do think that uh, people tend to read a lot more nonfiction these days. So the market for fiction is kind of getting way more limited, especially vis-a-vis the Indian market. And a lot of celebrities are, jumping on the book bandwagon, and more power to them, more strength to them. But then what happens is that if you look at any speaking forums, they're mostly targeting celebrities, or they're targeting people, self-help and stuff like that. So it's pretty difficult for somebody who's new in the field to kind of make their mark. But one tries, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I don't think it should be. I don't think it's a. Um, it's any sort of standard to pitch yourself against. That, oh, I didn't get featured on so and so forum, I'm not a good writer. At the end of the day, what also should matter is that somebody read your book and they wrote to you and they said, you know what, it really hit me here, and that's beautiful. That's enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you take inspiration from any of the classic writers? Like you have also done an MFA, as I was noticing in your profile. So
Yeah. So I love the older Gothic writers. So Edgar Allan Poe is a favorite. Rebecca, who wrote Rebecca? God, I'm so bad with, I keep forgetting names again. Like brain fog is ridiculous. Daphne du Maurier is a favorite. And then I have a couple of um, female authors that I keep going back to, who are my absolute favorites and who write this genre as well. So if I could write a single sentence as well as Catriona Ward writes, I would be like, "Bas, my life is, my life is sorted." There's Laura Purcell. There's so many. There's Sarah Winters. There's um, uh, again, I'm very bad with names, but
any Indian author?
Indian authors. Sure, I Bapsi Sidhwa, well, it's not technically Indian, but I used to love the work from Bapsi Sidhwa. If we're talking about female authors, if we're talking about Indian authors per se, Rohinton Mistry has always been a favorite. Kiran Nagarkar has always been a favorite. Oh my God, R.K. Narayan is my God. He's my God. Vikram Seth is my God. Arundhati Roy, Anita Nair. I mean, all of them. Upamanyu Chatterjee. I'm a bookworm to beat all bookworms. So I'm constantly reading. In fact, I just finished a really beautiful book by Saru Nuseba Kannanari, Chronicles of an Hour and a Half. And that was just brilliant. So I read all kinds of stuff. And I like to read a mix of um, literary fiction, popular fiction, and non-fiction. So all kinds of stuff. I'm always reading.
I would like to suggest you one book since you're talking about, like you like literary fiction. You can read C. It's a novel by Anupama Raju. It's a wonderful book. You will love it, I'm sure.
C, as in the letter
Yeah, it's a
C.
capital C. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds interesting. And what is it about? Is it? I mean,
Well, it's about a city that doesn't have a sun. So it's very
ah,
interesting. Very interesting. You will love it.
definitely. I'll put on my list. Thank you very much for that book recommendation. For sure.
Right. So, And Aparna, would you like to read something from your book if you have it with you right now?
Oh, I don't have a copy. I'm so sorry. I have given up my last copy. Um, I'm
No
so
worries.
sorry. I have it on my Kindle, but I'm using my phone right now. I didn't realize that there would be book reading involved.
Yeah,
Apologies
I
for that.
mentioned it in the mail that came from the team, Kimaya team. They approached me, but no worries.
I'm
It's
so sorry
okay.
about that. That was
We can again do a reading session, maybe perhaps with some of the
bad.
other authors I've interviewed.
But I can speak about the stories from the book. So, if you'd like, I
Any
can
stories if you
tell you
want to.
about the stories. So, I can, we can talk about, there's a story called Judas Cradle. Now, let me tell you about the torture device. It's actually shaped like a triangle. It's a spike,
Okay.
and a person is lowered onto the spike. So it impales their anus, and they're
Okay.
lowered
My God.
onto it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And when I saw that, I was in shock. So I wrote a book, which is actually it's about a beautiful relationship between a priest novitiate, which is a person who's not yet become a father, but is studying in the seminary to become a priest, a Christian priest, and a boy, a Christian boy, Henry, who lives in the railway colony near the seminary, and very young. So Henry is, I think, 14, and no, I think Henry is, yeah, 14, and this priest novitiate. It's a very common thing in Kerala and the southern nation, in the southern states, that
Right.
a lot of families send one son to the seminary, right?
Okay.
So this person, Brother Jose, or as he's known in Indians pronounce it Jose. So he's called Brother Jose, when actually it's Brother Jose. So Brother Jose has been sent to the seminary to study, even though he's not particularly, that's not particularly his calling. But most people do it because it's a matter of it's a socio-economic move. Because then what happens is that the seminary takes care of this person, and the person is able to save and send money back to their family. And I've seen a lot of people who do it as a means to get ahead in life, and that's a very common thing. So Brother Jose and Henry. So Brother Jose and Henry lives with his stepfather and his grandmother. And Henry sent to Brother Jose for a little bit of catechism classes. So catechism, because I grew up, when I was growing up, I went to a seminary school myself, in the sense that I went to a convent school.
Okay.
So, we had that whole, the Christian girls were sent off for catechism classes, whereas the rest of us mongrels were, that we did value education and moral science. So I was always
Right.
fascinated by the idea of catechism. And then they would take their whole first communion and all of that. And so Henry sent to Brother Jose for catechism classes, and how both these young boys kind of fall in love with each other, and
Okay.
how their relationship develops, and the purity of that relationship. And why I equated it to the Judas Cradle is because what happens to Henry after his father finds out, and what happens to Jose after society finds out.
Okay.
So that is what the Judas Cradle is based on.
Right.
So yeah, um,
So have
there's
you
lots of.
actually have you actually given have you actually given those punishments as well in a way that it was done in the medieval times, or you have kind of tweaked it a bit?
No, so there's no mention of the actual medieval torture instrument within the story at all. It's
Okay.
just a parallel that's drawn metaphorically. So
Right.
even though the story is named the Judas Cradle, it is how you would interpret it. So it is a psychological interpretation
Hmm.
of the torture instrument. So no, there is no mention of the actual instrument within the story at all.
Okay. So I was
Yeah.
reading one of the reviews on this Purple Pen project, I guess the website.
Yeah, Purple Pencil
They
Project. Purple
Purple
Pencil
Pencil,
Project.
yeah.
Yeah,
They
they're
have mentioned
wonderful.
that you have, gone deeper into the psyche or the psychology part and the deeper
Yeah,
conscience of the characters. So I just
yeah.
want to know that have you done a lot of research to know the psychology, or it comes naturally to you?
I think it comes from years and years of therapy. I've been, yeah, because of my own because of my own deeply depressive tendencies, I've been in and out of therapy my entire life. And I'm a person who believes in the power of therapy, who believes in the power of psychiatry, to solve a lot of problems. And yes, I do a lot of reading, which is based around psychology. So even if it is following particular pages on Instagram, I tend to follow a lot of psychology related pages, and not just pop psychology, which is not just, 10 ways to have a good day. No, I'll be reading about proper mental illnesses, just because I'm fascinated by that, and because uh, as research to put into my books. So yeah, so I would definitely say that the research comes from a lot of therapy that I've undergone, as well as the reading that I do.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Aparna, it was really lovely talking to you and discussing about your literary works and books. And I would be looking forward to, read your book also. And also,
Thank
I
you.
would look forward to your novel that's going to come out soon. So,
Thank
wishing
you.
you all the
Not
very
soon.
best.
We hope in the coming year for sure. Fingers and
No
toes
worries,
crossed.
whenever
Yeah.
it comes. But for now, I have that instrument of torture that's really, taken my attention. Also, the cover page. It was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. That I have to credit. There's a Portuguese artist, Ale de la Torre, and I've followed her page forever on Instagram, and I always knew that I need Ale to make a cover for me. And when Instruments of Torture came along, I was like, I got in touch with her and I was like, please, 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 let me. And then again, HarperCollins were a dream. They kind of got in touch with her and they procured it for me. So yeah, I was very lucky with that.
Wonderful. It really is a dream come true, I would say, for you
Yeah,
because HarperCollins
sure.
is one of the leading publishers. So
Yeah,
that's a very good thing. So
yeah.
best wishes for your book and looking forward to read and review your book. I hope I'm
Thank
able
you.
to do justice as well.
Thank you so much, Mona Lisa, for having me on your forum. Thank you so much for speaking to so many interesting people. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure is all mine. I hope you
Thank
will
you.
keep in touch. Bye. Have a great evening.
Absolutely. Have a great evening too. Bye bye. Thank you.
So I was talking to Aparna Sanyal. I hope you will also pick her book and please support the journey. And please also follow and subscribe to my YouTube channel and also this page, Mona Lisa's Talk Show. Have a great evening, all.